So, imagine you've gotten away for over 30 years for a string of murders in the 80s, and the only reason you get caught is that your relations wanted to see how Irish they were. What I'd like to talk about today are personal genetic testing kits, some of the risks behind them, and how they were used to catch the Golden State Killer. Companies like Ancestry.com and 23andMe offer a service where you can find out your heritage using personal genetic testing kits. These work by taking a saliva sample, sending it off to the lab, and for a fee of about €100, you can find out where your ancestors came from. But how do they work? In every cell in your body are the 23 pairs of chromosomes that contain all the information about what makes you, well, you. A chromosome looks a bit like a ball of wool, where your DNA, your genetic blueprint, is a string that's wrapped tightly together. Single nucleotide polymorphisms, or SNPs, are the most common type of genetic variation among people. They're kind of like a random change in color in the wool, and can be used by scientists to locate different genes. They can also be used to track the inheritance of disease genes within families. So you can also find out your genetic predisposition for diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and some cancers. So this all sounds great. You're getting two important bits of information for only €100. But how is this profitable for the companies? It seems like a lot of work on their part. Well, after they receive your personal details and your DNA, they now have a lot of valuable information about you. As an example, 23andMe has analysed the DNA of over 5 million people to date. That's a lot of information about people's location, ancestry, and genetic predisposition to sell in this era of big data. In fact, they recently signed a $300 million deal with a large pharmaceutical company to develop new drugs based on this research. But what's to stop this information being used to identify you in the future? You may think this sounds like some Orwellian fiction, but it's already happening. The prolific Californian murderer known as the Golden State Killer was recently identified after a genetic profile from a 1980s crime scene was uploaded to a database. It turns out that members of his extended family also had genetic tests done that were in the database. And by matching the location of the SNPs, a family tree was generated that identified the killer, whose identity was confirmed with further DNA testing. In this case, justice may have been served, but it represents an ethical minefield for the future. So, before you go about posting your saliva, please be aware that you could be giving away a lot more than you bargained for. Thank you for your time.
Well done, Karen.